Welcome back to ATL Day Ones. That's Jarvis. I'm Tenitra, and you guys are our faithful audience, and we appreciate you for that. And how do we know you're faithful? Because you keep downloading this podcast on all the platforms where you get your podcast, and you keep on giving us 5-star reviews. So we call that faithful, and we call it ride or die when you go to YouTube and have us over 3,100 subscribers on the Locked On Sports Network here in Atlanta. So keep doing what you're doing because hey, that tells us that we are going in the right direction with our content. And speaking of going in the right direction, 80 guys continue to go in the right direction for the Falcons. 5 guys from Tuesday, not so much. So Jarvis, we saw a couple of wide receivers, we saw a linebacker, a corner, and a defensive lineman, a D lineman. But of course, we know that was more injury related, if you will, in Jalen Dalton. But
Mhm.
the reason I gave it so generically is because said wide receivers were indeed called out by this show with
Yes.
a virtual pink slip that apparently got up to the ears of the folks at Flowery Branch, and they were like, you know what? That Tenitra and Jarvis, they're right about this thing. So, that being said, clearly, Jarvis, we were not necessarily surprised by who ended up on the chopping block, if you will, the cut floor, but maybe surprised about who didn't end up on the cut floor. Explain.
Whoo, wow. When you think about one thing that I always look at, when they have the 90-man roster, I kind of start
Yeah,
looking at guys that like, okay, let me keep an eye on this guy, let me keep an eye on
yeah.
that guy, and I think that Jalen Dalton was one of those guys that I
Mhm.
said, all right, this is a guy that I'm gonna keep my eye on. D. Alford was a guy that as soon as they
Yeah.
signed him, I was like, okay, cat coming out of D2 school,
Mhm.
played in the CFL.
Yeah.
Those are some of the things that just little things that I always like to keep put pins in, right? So like,
Mhm.
okay, let me see what these guys look like on the field,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that he was a guy, and another guy was Kwani Dang. He was an
Mhm.
undrafted
Mhm.
guy that he brought in, and he was like 6'6", about 240, 250. I think
Yeah.
that was kind of like, okay, he when you look at him, he looks like a project, right? And
Mhm.
for them to, go ahead and make that cut, I was a little bit of surprise.
Mhm.
Not
Mhm.
necessarily a big surprise, but I
Right.
was a little bit of surprise because,
Yeah.
he seems like a guy that you want to get on your practice squad and kind of work
Mhm.
with. But as the games get going, you always want to see whether or not what they do in practice transfers, and that's what Jalen Dalton may it
Mhm.
didn't necessarily transfer, right? Because I talked to Arthur Smith about this, and he was just saying how, hey, you hope that what you see in practice transfers to the field, and I think that was
Mhm.
one of the reasons why Jalen Dalton, of course, the injury, but
Sure.
I think on top of that, you think that okay, that didn't necessarily transfer into the game, and that's what's truly unfortunate because
Mhm.
these young guys when they get these opportunities, man, these dudes fight, scratch, and claw to try to make a squad, and then
Yeah.
when they get that pink slip, like you said,
Mhm.
it's always kind of like, man, I thought you had a little potential, and I think that the coaches are feeling the same way, and that's what the hardest part about all of this.
Mhm. Indeed, indeed. Now, we also know that when we get on the other side of cut day, there is also, and also leading up to a game, of course, there's also an updated depth chart that we get. So we have the depth chart for week 3, and just kind of looking at it, essentially, there aren't any surprises, if you will, as far as who's up front. We knew Anthony Rush, Taquan Graham, Grady Jarrett, because hey, those guys had good games. Just or that those guys had a good game this past Monday, right? So that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
really a shock. Ade up in that spot, of Arnold, ABKT. I think that probably goes back and forth. Just to be honest, I don't think
Right.
we'll kind of know what that looks like until week 1, and then that could be interchangeable depending on schemes or packages. I'm gonna say a name. I know how I already feel about him. I'm interested to see what you feel about him as well because it's interesting to see where he is. But before we talk about him, I want to say this to our faithful audience. Don't be like me and leave your tea at home when your throat is scratchy or leave your coffee at home when you need a little kick. Be like Jarvis and be the queen. Well, in his case, I'm the queen. Be the king of Coffee AM.
Yes, I am the king of coffee AM. That's why I'm wearing my gold, and I'm also represent Albany State Golden Rams. Got to all day, every day. You know how I get down. But coffeeam.com/locked on is the website that you need to go to. Let me tell you why. Because I've been on my rainforest crunch. I've been taking a trip to the rainforest each and every day because Coffee AM has all of those different type of flavors. I'm talking about if you want to go to Kenya, I know they come in the K cups. I
Mhm,
absolutely love
mhm.
those. But I think this rainforest crunch is something that just really gets me going in the morning. If you're looking for that pick me up, if you're looking for something to say, you know what, I need some good coffee. I'm talking about from the best small batch coffee roaster in the entire country. Now that I gave you the reasons why to go there, I'm about to tell you another reason why you need to go there. Because once you go to the website, coffeeam.com/locked on, drop in the coupon code box locked on, and you're gonna get 15% off of all coffee, teas, and gift sets. T telling you about the tea. I'm telling you about the coffee. She's the queen. I'm the king around here of Coffee AM. Go to the website right now and go get coffeeam.com/locked on. Drop in the coupon code box locked on, and you're gonna get 15% off of all coffee, teas, and gift sets. Go ahead and pull up on the best small batch coffee roaster in the entire country.
Yes, and who wouldn't want to get something that sounds that good and you get a discount? I mean, you're winning, you're winning, you're winning. And speaking of winning, at least on paper, but we'll talk about what it really means, is going down that depth chart on the defensive side of the ball is of course looking at more of the linebacker positions. And we see not only was he at practice today out and about, but Deion Jones also appeared in the one spot on the depth chart. Now, like I
Uh-oh.
said, not saying that's super surprising, but you know where I'm going in terms of, what does this mean about where we think Dion is going to land somewhere between now and maybe the start of the season?
I think he still isn't going to be on this roster because
Same.
I believe wholeheartedly that the Falcons just don't need him. They don't. They don't need him. They have Rashawn Evans, who's clearly shown that he can be a guy that could be the leading
Yes.
tackler for this spot, for
Mm-hmm.
this squad. And Michael Walker
Mm-hmm.
is just being as solid as usual when you
Yeah.
want to
No
see what
question.
his
No question.
capabilities are. So, like
Mm-hmm.
I said, we've seen it in practice with our
Yes.
own eyes, and you start to see some of those things transfer to the game. That's what
Mm-hmm.
Arthur Smith always talked about. And I just don't see a scenario where Deion Jones will be needed. So I think that I doubt. Now, this is one thing that just came to me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they drop him in there just to let everybody know that he's fully healthy.
Yes,
You
that's
know what I'm
about
saying
it.
in the game? Like, all right, he's healthy. Come on here. All your little trepidation that you've been having about dropping that fourth or fifth round pick. Yeah, that's the
Mm-hmm.
type of conversation they don't get because they still got to
Exactly.
pay that check. You got to cut the check. So I think that that's something that we can probably potentially look forward to
Mm-hmm.
on Saturday at 3 o'clock when the Falcons face against the Jaguars.
Indeed.
I think that's kind of where my mind is when it comes to Deion
Same.
Jones. I don't think that he will be on this roster. Now, if I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
hey, that's what it is. Either more than likely that's because nobody wanted to, give up compensation and also pay that full freight on that salary.
And yeah, I would have to agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if they found a way to insert him into the
Right.
game plan on
Yeah. Go
Saturday.
on in there, Debo.
Exactly. That insertion is for show. That is for
Yes.
a showcase to let you know
Mm-hmm.
exactly where he is in his progression. Now, of course, when we look at the secondary, no real changes there. I mean, it's still going to be AJ, Jalen, Casey, and Richie. So that's still the
Yeah.
same in terms of that depth chart. So let's switch over to offense to see just if there are any surprises that you had and then there's one particular question that I want to ask you too as we wrap up kind of our look at the reaction to who was released when the roster was cut down, as well as what the depth chart looks like week going into week 3 as opposed to week 2. So again, no shocker there as far as running back. That's still going to be CP and wide receiver. Same thing. You're talking about Drake and Brian Edwards and OZ, of course, being that third, right?
Mm-hmm.
No shock
Yeah.
at tight end, fullback. You got one. You keep it moving. So left tackle's fine. Right guard's the same. I'm gonna go to and right tackle. Actually, I think everybody's been decently surprised, right? That Caleb
Yeah.
McGarry has looked. We're gonna go with decent.
He was
We're gonna
fine. He
keep it.
was
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
decent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Left guard, Elijah Wilkinson. Center, Matt Hennessy. Thoughts?
Uh, kind of right on brand with what I've been saying. I think that I went on ahead since the Falcons didn't want to make a decision on whether or not they want Matt Hennessey or Drew Dalman. I made the decision for them. A couple weeks ago, I'm just like, hey, this is the guy. Matt Hennessey is the guy. He needs to do it. Even though Drew Dalman had a good showing, I feel, against the New York Jets. That's fine, but I feel like Matt Hennessey, you pretty much know what you're going to get with Matt Hennessey. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but all you're looking for right now is consistency.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, on the offensive line, you don't need everybody to be great. You just need the guys to be able to do what they need to do, exactly what you need them to do. Meet those certain expectations in order for the offense to be successful. Now, the one thing I was kind of surprised about. Go ahead and look. I'm looking at AtlantaFalcons.com with their depth chart and everything.
Yes.
Why in the world is Tyler Algier behind John Rain? like he is the reserve. I was like, I thought Tyler Algier has been pretty solid. There might be Arthur Smith saying, hey, big man, I know you like what he's doing from a blocking standpoint. I know what you're doing from a running back standpoint. But hey, he still needs to learn. He still has a ways to go, or still has to be able to learn what he needs to do in order to be able to get some snaps or get some carries in my offense. But I get that. But golly, man, Algier has been solid.
Right.
I'm just like, I have to kind of put my glasses on. Like, what's going on?
That's one that I thought was shocking as well. Like, okay. Okay.
Like, all right.
Yeah, like literally I had to do a double take. But real quick, we talked about this as well. And the depth chart has not changed, of course, at quarterback per se. But I think it's more of a conversation to where now that you've seen both guys 2 weeks in a row, you've even seen them in joint practices, and we're getting reports out of Flowery Branch as we speak in terms of what practice is looking like today, because we're not out there today, but of course we'll be back there fairly soon. And both of these guys are doing pretty well. Mariota was near perfect today at practice, so was Desmond Ridder. And so the question becomes, you still have on some level a bit of a QB quandary, Arthur Smith does. But when you look at it, have you seen enough to say, yep, I think Marcus Mariota is that guy who can do what Arthur Smith needs him to do, and he's deservedly going to be at QB1 as he is on this depth chart to start the season. But also, you can have two. Desmond Ridder can also have taken the next step in his development. What do you think about that, just in terms of what you're seeing as the quandary continues at QB for Smith?
I think Marcus Mariota can do exactly what Arthur Smith asked. And I think that that's more so of what Arthur Smith's capabilities are as a play caller and offensive, and his scheme, and being able to be successful in that. I think that at some point, these guys are going to be interchangeable. I'm not saying that's right now. I mean, Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota, because Mariota is a veteran. He's been in this scheme before, so obviously he's going to have the upper hand. However, from Desmond Ridder's standpoint, I believe that you like to see the progression, right? You like to see the consistency. What he's been consistent in doing is making those throws and getting the ball where he needs to get there, because the arm strength is definitely there. And I think that you've been able to see in these last two games, the poise in the pocket, being able to sit there like, okay, if I feel pressure, I'm still holding my read. I'm going to make sure I get the ball where it needs to be. And if I don't feel pressure, I'm still holding my thing and making sure I get the ball where it needs to be. So all of those things have been factors as far as this quarterback crunch. I think that the Falcons, I think Terry Fontenot right now is sitting back here smiling like, yep, I told y'all. Yeah, this is what it is. And not to say that, hey, Desmond Ridder's about to be a Pro Bowler this year, but saying that, hey, we got the right guy or guys at the up under center, and we definitely have what we need in order to be successful in 2022.
Indeed. And I tell you, what we don't have to be successful in some areas of the school districts in and around Atlanta Metro are some bus drivers that are on one, and we are not pleased, but there is something else that we are pleased about that's going on in the A, and we'll talk to you guys about it on the other side in For the Culture.